How's it going, Diablo friends? So today I'm showing you my latest Chain Lightning build. This is a very special Chain Lightning build since this is actually using the X-Force Corroded Signet as well as the Tal Rasha ring at the same time. We are not using recharging aspect on one of our rings as a regular Chain Lightning build. We are actually getting pure damage out of our rings, and we are also taking full advantage of those two rings because both of these rings actually give cooldown reduction, which is a stat you cannot regularly get on a ring. This additional cooldown reduction gives us a very high uptime on unstable currents without actually having to use totally suboptimal items like Flicker Stab or stuff like that. We pretty much have the raw cooldown reduction here, and we can have unstable currents up for every single fight where we actually need it without any issues here. You can always check the description down below. There's links to the specific sections of this guide, the skill tree, the Paragon and everything else. And as always, you will also find the link to the planner right there. So let's talk real quick how this build works. So we use a very high lucky hit chance. In this instance I have a lucky hit chance bonus of about 100%. And we use this lucky hit chance for spawning the static ball lightnings from the ball lightning enchants, as well as triggering the explosions from the X-Force Corroded Signet. Furthermore, we use the convulsions passive, which pretty much stuns all mobs all the time. With this high lucky hit chance we really don't have to worry that they are pretty much moving at all. And then last but not least, we use 2 resource generation on lucky hit stats on our gear to keep our mana up all the time. All this lucky hit gives us a crazy high uptime on Ball Lightning Enchant, and it also triggers a lot of X-Force explosions, and those X-Force explosions actually do quite a bit of damage. They can pretty much crit up to 3 million at a time. We combine that with the very high uptime on Unstable Currents, which is launching a lot of lightning spares, and by the way also launching a lot of spells which actually do damage. But the lightning spares pretty much go ahead off screen and on screen and pretty much pre-stun all enemies, so you arrive there and the enemies will anyway always be stunned. And furthermore, it also applies lucky hits, so the lightning spares actually spawn more lightnings and they make the mobs burning and the mobs explode, and you have a very high clear speed once Unstable Currents is up. To get maximum uptime on Unstable Currents, we pretty much use cooldown reduction on all of our gear. And since we have 2 unique rings, which both happen to have cooldown reduction, which is a stat you normally cannot get on a ring, we have a pretty big advantage here in terms of cooldown reduction. Furthermore, we use the Anticipation Vampiric Power for another 20% cooldown reduction, and that pretty much gives us a base of a little under 40 seconds cooldown on Unstable Currents here. You can probably reach somewhere between 25 and 30 seconds cooldown on Unstable Currents actually. I don't have cooldown reduction on my Amulet, and I don't have cooldown reduction on my Focus, so there's pretty much some stuff to optimize there still. And of course, furthermore, we use the Overflowing Energy Key passive, which helps us to reduce our ultimate cooldown even further. And since we have all this lucky hit chance, we obviously want to do as many attacks as possible, so we use the Ravenous Vampiric Power to pretty much bump our attack speed to 100%, and then on top of it we can actually go to 150% attack speed. We can use the accelerating aspect for another 25%, which actually works, and we can also use the 25% attack speed increase from Unstable Currents. So while we have Unstable Currents up and running, we actually reach 150% attack speed. So now, since we have a crazy high attack speed and a lot of lucky hit chance, what's left is our mana regeneration. And as I already said, we are not using the recharging aspect here. We can get our mana regeneration solely out of 2 resource generation on lucky hit stats on our gear, the Fiery Surge passive, as well as some support from the Invigorating Conduit passive here. So that's a short description of this build. I hope you like it. So let's check out how we melt on this boss here real quick, and after that we go right into the guide. Alright, let's go over the skill tree. So we put 2 points into Firebolt since we're using the Firebolt enchantment. Then we put 1 point into Devastation just because we need to put 4 points here. 1 point into Chain Lightning, 1 point into Enhanced Chain Lightning, and 1 point into Destructive Chain Lightning to generate some more crackling energy. We are not using the damage of Chain Lightning here. We pretty much just use it as a lucky hit applicator in this build. Then we put 1 point into Flame Shield, 1 point into Teleport, 1 point into Enhanced Teleport, 1 point into Shimmering Teleport. We have a very low cooldown on teleport because we have a lot of cooldown reduction on our gear, and overflowing energy actually reduces this even further, so we can pretty much have the 30% damage reduction of teleport up all the time if we want. Then we put 1 point into Elemental Attunements, 3 points into Glass Cannon as pretty much always, and just 1 more point into Ice Armor. Then we move on and put 3 points into Precision Magic, since this is a lucky hit based build. 1 into Align the Elements, 3 into Mana Shields, 3 into Protection. This is our primary barrier generator. Then we put 1 point into Lightning Spear, 1 point into Enhanced Lightning Spear, and 1 point into Invoked Lightning Spear. This helps us to stun all enemies all the time. Then 1 point into Inner Flames, 3 points into Devouring Blaze. If you have a +3 Devouring Blaze amulet, that's always a great thing. This is pretty much the best damage modificator you can get from your amulet. Then we completely max out Ball Lightning with Enhanced Ball Lightning and Wizard's Ball Lightning. This is pretty much one of our strongest damage sources in this build still. 1 point into Static Discharge, 3 points into Invigorating Conduit. We don't need more points into Static Discharge since Chain Lightning is already generating enough crackling energy, and we also have a very high lucky hit chance, so Static Discharge also generates enough crackling energy. And furthermore, Wizard's Ball Lightning generates crackling energy as well, so you shouldn't have any issues generating enough here. Then we put 3 points into Fury Surge. This gives us a nice 45% mana regeneration in a Nightmare Dungeon context or in any non-boss context, and also some bosses spawn at, so this also works on some bosses as well. Then we put 1 point into Unstable Currents, 1 point into Prime Unstable Currents, and 1 point into Supreme Unstable Currents. Not gonna talk about this one here. Then 1 point into Coursing Currents, 3 points into Electrocution for the damage reduction, 3 points into Convulsions for the stun. We are not using Conduction here since we already have a high movement speed and a lot of crit chance, so I cannot really find a point where to take these 3 points from, so I'm not using it for now. I feel like I don't need it. And for our key passive, we use Overflowing Energy. If you're in a boss context like Uber Lilith or Uber Dure or whatever, you can certainly switch to Burst Mastery here to squeeze out a little bit of extra damage. Let's take a look at our skills. So we use Unstable Currents as our ultimate with a very low cooldown. As you can see here, it's 38 seconds. You can probably reach somewhere around 30 seconds if you really have more cooldown reduction on your gear. I am certainly missing cooldown reduction on my focus and also on my amulet, and also the cooldown reduction on my rings is actually pretty low, so there's definitely room for improvement here. But pretty much as soon as you have Unstable Currents up, you are pretty much the 100% mana kill everything god. If Unstable Currents is down, you're still gonna do great, but it's obviously much better if it's on. We use Ice Blades solely to apply cold damage to get another 15% out of our Tal Rasha ring. Teleport, this gives us 30% damage increase and lets us move around faster. Flame Shield for obvious reasons. Chain Lightning we use as our main lucky hit applicator here. And then Ice Armor for a little bit of extra damage reduction and barrier while it's active. Then we use the Ball Lightning enchant. We have maxed out Ball Lightning, so we have a very high lucky hit chance. And this actually spawns quite a few of the Ball Lightning enchants. And our last enchantment is the Firebolt enchantment. We use this to get the burning synergy up and running, and also to trigger the fire explosions from the X-Force Corroded Signet ring. Okay, let's go through the unique items and legendary aspects here. In this build we're playing more unique items and less legendary aspects. So let's start with the offensive aspects. So I'm running the Stormswell aspect on my amulet for a maximum of 45% increased damage. As you can see, I happen to run out of good Stormswell aspects, so I'm really using a min roll here. So I can get another 15% easily here if I find a better one. Then we use the aspect of the Unbroken Tether on our focus. You can definitely switch this with the amulet. If you feel like you're struggling with mana, you can put the Unbroken Tether on your amulet and put the Stormswell on here. Then we use the Conceited aspect for another 25% damage increase. And we use the Accelerating aspect to overcap our attack speed to 125%. And together with the Unstable Currents, we can actually reach 100%. Then as for our defensive aspects, we use the aspect of Fortune for more lucky hit chance. We use the aspect of Disobedience for obvious reasons. And we use the Ever-Living aspect. This gives us a flat 25% damage reduction. So that's already it for our aspects. So let's talk about unique items here. So we use the Asus boots. This gives us a very high crit chance. Just keep in mind to evade whenever your evade is up, because the 75% movement speed increase here actually gives us a crazy high crit chance while it's active. And evade has 4 seconds cooldown, and this one lasts for 3 seconds, so you can pretty much have it up all the time. Then we use the X-Force Corroded Signet ring here. This is going to give us additional cooldown reduction as well as triggering the fire explosions, which this build is based around. And last but not least, we use the Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop, which is the new ring, which happened to come up like a few days ago. This gives us up to 15% damage increase for every stack of elemental damage. So every kind of elemental damage we deal gives us an extra stack. So in this build we have fire, lightning and cold, which gives us 45%. You can mix in a 4 stack with poison. You just have to use the infection vampiric power. And you can probably switch out for anticipation if you have more cooldown reduction. As I said, I'm missing cooldown reduction on my amulet and on my focus. So if you have max cooldown reduction, you can definitely go for infection and squeeze out another 15% damage increase here. So let's go over our gear, and as always, you can find the dream gear and stats in the planner in the link in the description down below. I'm just going to show you my gear now and tell you what stats you should aim for. So on our helmet, we want to have maximum life, total armor, cooldown reduction. And the last stat could be lucky hit chance, crowd control duration, or possibly also maximum mana if you struggle with mana regeneration. On our chest piece, we want total armor, maximum life, and 2 damage reduction stats, so this is pretty much a very good piece. On our gloves, you want attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and lucky hit to restore resource with the highest possible roll. So this piece here is pretty much perfect for this gear. If you can only get 3 out of 4, don't worry. You probably want to skip the attack speed or the lucky hit chance. The critical strike chance here is the most important. Then on our pants, again, we want to go defensive, so we want to have total armor, maximum life, ball lightning, and a damage reduction stat, ideally. On our boots, Asus pretty much go for the highest mana cost reduction and highest movement speed with the most highest critical strike chance roll. So critical strike chance roll is great, but if your boots has like only 15.8% movement speed and you have a 30% critical strike chance, I would still opt for the higher movement speed boots. So you kind of have to find like a balance in the middle. I usually tend to go for the Asus with the highest movement speed here. On our weapon, as always, pretty much we want to get all stats, main stat, and damage to burning enemies, and another damage stat. In this case, damage to close enemies is actually pretty nice. Then in our focus, we want to have critical strike chance, cooldown reduction, mana cost reduction, and resource gain on lucky hit. So this piece is pretty good, but just imagine to swap the crowd control duration for cooldown reduction. On our amulet, ideally we want to have movement speed, ranks to mastery skills, ranks to devouring blaze, and cooldown reduction. This one here has, instead of cooldown reduction, has intelligence, which is also pretty nice, but cooldown reduction is definitely the better stat to get. Then on our rings, pretty much you aim for the highest all stats and the highest cooldown reduction and the highest lucky hit chance. The damage over time doesn't matter at all. The damage proc here with 40k is pretty high. As long as you're not at like 34k, it's going to be alright. If you are like over 37-ish, then probably aim for the one with the best cooldown reduction roll here. For the Tal Rashas, obviously you want to go for 15%, but you also want to go for the highest cooldown reduction roll. So instead of getting a min roll cooldown reduction, I would rather get a little bit less for the elemental damage bonus. For our Vampiric Powers, we pretty much have no optional ones here. Unless you have the maximum cooldown reduction, we have one optional, but let's go to the mandatory ones first. So obviously we have the Ravenous for the maximum attack speed here. We have the Prey on the Weak to get everything with a Vampiric Curse vulnerable and also give us more damage. Then we have the Accursed Touch to actually apply the Vampiric Curse. We have the Undying, which gives us a crazy high life leech with our attack speed, which is also pretty much non-debatable. And then last but not least, we have the Anticipation here for more ultimate cooldown reduction. If you have cooldown reduction on your Amulet and Focus, you can probably switch this for Infection. And then the Infection will actually trigger the 4 stack of the Tal Rasha ring, so you will have another 15% multiplicative damage here. And also Infection doesn't actually do too bad damage-wise. The Paragon board for this build is a little bit different. It's a little bit more defensive, and we have some different boards in here because we want to get some maximum mana rolls you usually don't get. As for glyphs, we don't use any conditional damage modificators here. We only use really pretty much plain damage. So let's just take a look at it. So we use our non-physical damage stats here, and in our first board we use the Elementalist. This gives us a 15% multiplicative damage increase because we can apply all 3 elements. And moving over to the next board, that is going to be the Enchantment Master. Again, we pick up the non-physical damage nodes here. We pick up the other non-physical damage nodes here. If you are defensive enough, you feel like you don't need more defenses, you can definitely get these nodes here and remove some defenses later on. We put the Tactician Glyph here. This gives us a 10% multiplicative damage increase after casting a defensive skill, so this is pretty much going to be active all the time. And we pick up the maximum resistance node here. We can completely cap our resistances from Paragon Board, so that's why we choose like 3 or more or resistance node in the Paragon. Then moving over to the next board, that is going to be the Keysless Conduit board. We pick up the Damage to Elite cluster at the bottom here. Then we put in our Destruction Glyph for 49 Dexterity and about 200% critical strike damage increase, and also up to 12% multiplier on critical strike. And we pick up the 20% lightning damage node here just to get these dexterity nodes. This node itself doesn't really matter, but I guess it's good it's there. Moving over to the next board, this is going to be the Elemental Summoner board, so this is probably something different here. You wouldn't see this board here usually. Because in general I don't like it super much because the way, like the passing here is pretty long, but in this build we kind of need it. So we pick up the non-physical damage nodes here on the left, then we pick up the all resistance nodes here, we put in our charge glyph, the crackling energy damage doesn't matter at all, we just take it for the 15% damage increase after picking up crackling energy. Then we get this nice maximum mana cluster here. This helps us to restore more resource since our resource generation is lucky hit based, so if we would only have 100 mana, we would probably run out of mana quite a lot. Getting these extra, 28 mana actually helps a lot, so we can shoot out 1 additional Chain Lightning. And also since our mana regeneration on lucky hit is percent base, having more maximum mana obviously helps us to get more return out of these modifiers. Then let's move over to the next board. This is going to be the Burning Instinct board. We pick up the defensive nodes here with the armor, and if you feel like you don't need these, you can switch out the damage nodes at the beginning, as I already said. Then we put in the Flame Feeder glyph here for another 10% multiplicative and 87% damage to burning. We pick up the damage to burning node here, and we pick up the damage reduction from burning here. Then we move over to the next board. That is going to be the Frigid Fate board. Note that we pick the Frigid Fate here. This gives us 26% multiplicative bonus with all spells. This is not only applying to cold spells, this pretty much applies to everything. It just equal to the damage of bonus cold damage, but we get the bonus cold damage from the non-physical damage nodes we pick everywhere anyway. Then we pick up the vulnerable damage here, we pick up the resistance node here just to get access to these dexterity nodes, and then we put in the exploit glyph here again for another 10% multiplicative damage. We don't pick any further dexterity notes here because the additive part of this is actually not needed. And last but not least, we pick up some lucky hit chance here. Also, this is like optional. If you feel like you don't need the lucky hit chance, you can probably save these 5 notes and distribute them somewhere else. Alright, that was pretty much everything for this guide. We have went through everything important to you. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I will make sure to answer them as quickly as possible. I am now going to leave you 2 full nightmare dungeons as well as Uber Lilith. So thank you so much for watching and I see you guys next time.
I'm not ready yet. I need time to I need time to prepare that. I'm not ready yet. I need time. I'm not ready yet. I need time to prepare that. I need time to I'm not ready yet. I need time to prepare. I need time to I'm not ready yet. 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 ready yet.